Episode 82 of the Interpretation Station is Called to Order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Or should I say, episode 82 of Ko Jan is Called to Order. I got that right, did I? Okay.
Yes.
I've been practicing. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are back with, well, you may recall about a month ago, I produced an episode and it was called Sheer Insanity, first Interpretation Station episode into Chinese. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the insanity is continuing. Who would have thought it? Yes, we have actually got another episode in Chinese for all the followers of the Interpretation Station. And I've got a very special guest with me today. Her name is Sophie, or her Chinese name is Dong Yi. How are you doing, Sophie?
Hi, I'm good. Nice to meet you guys.
Great to have you with us today. Great to have you with us today for our second Chinese episode. Looking forward to what we're going to be doing. Now, Sophie, she is actually she's working, and she's an interpreter. She's actually she's working on the, she's on the job. She lives in Beijing, and she is the personal interpreter for the Pakistani ambassador to China. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, exactly.
So she is the Pakistani ambassador's main interpreter, and you've been working there for how long?
Only 3 months.
3 months. So she's quite new, but
Yes.
we've got a really interesting, as I say, we've got a really interesting episode lined up for you, because we've got not only got a text for us to do as we usually do, but we're also going to get a bit of background from Sophie and see how that sort of job looks like. Now, Sophie, before we get sort of started, could you just tell us a bit about your background? Tell us where you're from, what you studied.
Okay. First of all, it's about my education background. From 2015 to 2019, I did my bachelor's degree in English and American and British literature. And from 2019 to 2020, I did my master's degree in interpretation and translation in University of Nottingham.
Nottingham, okay.
I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate for us, for this, for students who study from 2019 to 2020 to be interrupted by the pandemic.
Yeah, I bet.
I wasted half of my semester. Yeah.
It was all,
anyway.
But you got you came through it anyway. You got the you got the degree. That's the main thing, eh?
Yes.
And then you came back to China after that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a job, and I only want to do like a job which is related to interpreting. I don't want to make any kind of like a concession in terms of the job choice, because of the really the harsh reality. Some people will choose to do teaching related or education related, or other stuff has nothing to do with interpretation. So I wait for a long time, basically from November last year to maybe February this year. I tried to do some short-term interpretation projects for Universal Studio in Beijing and other stuff. And then I got this opportunity. I think I'm really lucky.
That's a great opportunity. That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Are you from Beijing originally?
No, I'm from Hebei province, which is really near to Beijing. It's like neighbors.
Okay. And how much time did you actually spend in Nottingham?
More than 1 year.
Okay.
Yes. Basically, I have never been out of Nottingham. I have never traveled during the year.
You never got out of Nottingham. Right. What did you think of Nottingham?
It's really beautiful.
Is it? Yeah. I've never been to Nottingham. I must.
Never been to there?
No.
It's great. It's really comfortable to live a peaceful life.
Yes.
We got the parks, castles, and Greenland, all of that stuff. Very beautiful.
Okay. And did you visit Sherwood Forest? Is that the main tourist attraction?
The forest?
Sherwood Forest. You know Robin Hood?
Know
Robin Hood?
I know Robin Hood.
That's where he's from. I mean, that's where the Robin Hood legend springs from. I believe. I
Okay.
think it's from there. I might get confused with somewhere else. I think it's somewhere out there anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of forests. I like sunshine and Greenland. We have some
Sunshine in
picnic.
Greenland, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that little introduction then from Sophie, let me just give you the background then to the episode that we're going to do today. Now, as regular followers of the interpretation station know, I tend to focus almost entirely on simultaneous interpretation, conference interpreting. That's my job essentially, and so I usually take statements from meetings that I've done, and then I sort of try and break them down. I sort of try and dissect what I've done. Now, because Sophie, her job is slightly different to mine, so she, in fact, I guess, does not so much there's not much simultaneous, right, involved in your work. Most of her meetings, being the interpreter, the ambassador, involves a lot of one-on-one meetings where essentially she is the go-between, and obviously it involves a lot of consecutive interpreting, a lot of chuchotage. Am I right, Sophie, in saying this?
Yes, I think 90% of my tasks is to do consecutive interpreting, and only 10% is about like simultaneous.
Okay.
So I'm mainly focused on consecutive.
Okay. So I thought it was interesting because of the nature of Sophie's job to actually focus on that dimension of interpreting. And to be honest, your humble host here has very little experience in consecutive interpreting. I've never really done consecutive interpreting. I don't know how to do all the little signs and things like that. I've never been taught that. I had maybe one job when I was like 13, 14 years ago, before I started working at a job like that. I was working at a trade fair. It was with a trade fair in Serbia with Korean companies coming to Serbia who had to they spoke English. That was the closest that I had to work along those lines. So, but nevertheless, I thought it was very interesting because obviously a lot of you guys who are watching, perhaps you're studying, perhaps that's a field that you're going to be going into. So I thought let's focus on let's focus on a typical statement, perhaps, that Sophie would run into in her everyday work. And what actually happened was, when Sophie contacted me and said she'd like to come on my show, I said to her, okay, right, well, given your work, let's, you know what, the best thing to do is if you can come up and think up a dialogue and send that dialogue into me, then we can make a show. And to be honest, I wasn't that certain she was going to. I thought that would, we have an expression in English, Sophie, separate the wheat from the chaff. Do you know that expression?
No.
The wheat from the chaff. So when the farmer collects all the wheat to make the bread, the wheat's the good stuff that gets made into bread. The chaff is the stuff you throw out. So I thought, okay, if I tell her she's got to come up with a dialogue, then we're really going to find out if she's taking this seriously. And lo and behold, she did. She sent in to me a typical dialogue that she runs comes across in her everyday work. It's going to be between the ambassador and a local official, and so we're going to look at that. It's going to be going both directions, by the way, guys. So it's going to be we're going to have some Chinese into English and some English into Chinese. So it's going to be a very novel episode, as I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Now, before we actually get to the dialogue itself that Sophie sent to me, as I say, for me, it's very interesting to know about what the job looks like. As I say, working, let's say, for an ambassador, what is the typical sort of 9 to 5 of an interpreter who does that sort of thing? Maybe you guys are watching, maybe you all know it, and maybe it's nothing new to you. For me, it's fascinating because I've never really seen that end of the interpreting spectrum, as it were. So tell me, Sophie, what is your typical 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever your working hours are?
It's 9 to 5.
9 to 5. What's your typical 9 to 5?
I mean, our current ambassador is a really hardworking guy, and so he always keeps himself busy. So I have a lot of jobs to do every day. So my job routine is basically like if there are enterprises paying visit to the embassy, I will accompany the ambassador to the grand meeting hall to do a consecutive interpretation for him. And sometimes we have to go out of the embassy to visit some major banks or financial institutions in Beijing. I will also play the role as the English to Chinese interpreter. And other time, maybe I don't need to go out or I don't need to do interpretation tasks. I will only do some like computer work, do some translation. For example, there are some documents sent by the Foreign Affairs Office of Beijing. I have to do that.
Okay.
And maybe during there is 1 week during a month, we have to go out of Beijing to pay a visit to other provinces like Yunnan, Henan, or any other provinces. So during this journey, I will serve as an interpreter and also like a secretary. Right. So I will run the errands and at the same time to do interpreting and in every occasion where the ambassador has to talk to other leaders.
Okay, once a month you get to go out. So you must sort of, you go out by, you travel by train to all these far-flung parts of China then? Or?
Yeah, mainly planes because China is a vast country.
Massive,
so
right. Oh, that's a really interesting, I mean, that must be a fascinating job for you, huh?
Yes, I love this job, especially for a young person who is as energetic, as exuberant as me.
Sure, and you have a lot of practice, obviously, speaking English, and it must set you in great stead for things to come, I guess.
Yes, this job is very challenging, especially for not only like physically, but also mentally. You have to deal with a lot of pressure because the guy you're talking to may be the leader of the province or the minister of which department. So it really improved my
Who's confidence. The most senior official that you've met?
Well,
that you've had a meeting with?
The vice president of China.
The vice president of China, okay. Yeah. What's his name?
Wang Qishan, His Excellency Wang Qishan.
Okay. Well. So you've in touch meeting between the Pakistani ambassador and the vice president. Okay. Now, one thing that Sophie's done, which I think just to make it interesting, she's also sent me in some photos of her work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen with you so that you can see those photos. And then Sophie, if I might ask you just to sort of just tell us about those photos, who they feature, what the event is. Now, just bear with me while I find these photos. Okay, so Sophie, tell us about this photo here. That's you here, I guess, at the back.
Yeah, okay. The only girl in the photo, that's me. This photo was taken during our visit to Hunan province, which is a province in Western and Southern China. And the guy in the front, who is talking with the ambassador, is the party secretary of Hunan province. So he's like the most important, most prominent leader in this province.
In Hunan,
yeah. Yes, this is the first meeting they have, the first time they meet each other.
Okay. How long has the ambassador been in China? How long has he been the Pakistani ambassador to China?
Almost 1 year.
1 year, okay. Going on here then?
This one is interesting. That day is the day which marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and Pakistan. So it's a huge event.
70th anniversary, huh?
Yeah, 70th.
When was this taken?
In the state house, the state hall. 钓鱼台 State Hall. It's like a state level reception hall for foreign guests.
And when was it?
May 20th.
Oh, so just recently, very recently, yeah. So they established diplomatic relations then in what, 1951?
21. Yeah, 50. Sorry,
51. 1951. Okay. Because I guess Pakistan became independent in what, 48? So so China was one of the sort of pretty early. Yes. It was pretty early in recognizing them, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on this occasion, it's on this event where I meet Vice President of China.
Oh, is that the same? Okay, so it was all sort of in the context of the same event. Okay, very good. All right. What's going on here then?
This is also the event. You can see some of the 70th.
Oh, right. Now you mentioned, okay, I can see in the background there. Yes.
So I have to do some like a really serious standing up interpretation, but after the dinner, I have to accompany the ambassador to go around to like to toast with other guests.
I see. Are you at liberty to say who he's speaking to there? Or?
Sorry?
Who is he speaking to there? Are you allowed to say, or is it?
Actually, I didn't remember.
You don't remember? Okay. So he's going around doing the rounds, meeting all the various dignitaries and things.
They have met before. They have met before this event. When I was interpreting for this event, I was only in the embassy for 1 week. So
okay. Yeah. This was you were only there. This was very early on. Then this was just after you'd started.
Yes.
Oh, so you were still a bit sort of nervous, eh?
Yes. I even we're like trainers in the grand hall.
Right. Okay, what's going on here?
This is also interesting. The ambassador was shooting an episode of showing Pakistani specialties like some food, some textile products to a Chinese audience. They were shooting this for a TV station, which is Hainan TV station. It's a provincial or regional TV station in China. And after the shooting, the leader of this station, which is the man blocked by the lady,
okay,
comes up to the ambassador and have some exchanges.
Okay. When was this taken?
Maybe in June. I think it's in June or July. Very recent.
Okay. Oh, so you certainly go and see some exciting things, and your typical working days never dull.
Yes, really exciting. Always adrenaline.
Okay. Now I'd be interested to know. So the dialogue that you sent in to me, which we're going to start get cracking with in a moment, was that based by any chance on any of the sort of photos, the dialogues from the photos that we saw, or is it a bit different? Because obviously the one we're doing is sort of you out in the field, isn't it? So
I have been with the ambassador visiting other provinces for maybe 3 times, and we have met a lot of like municipal leaders or provincial leaders, and I can see there's a pattern of the speech that the ambassador is delivering, or the pattern of the leader. He's expressing his warm reception, or
it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of the same sort of diplomatic courtesies and things, right? Okay, yeah, that's interesting, because obviously one thing I tell a lot of my students, so with the simultaneous, with the conference interpreting, you'll often have these meetings where a whole string of countries will come up, and they'll say the same thing starting out, distinguish this president and your esteemed what have you. And I often tell people that a lot of that you can just sort of do away with. If the speaker's going fast, you can just drop a lot of that stuff. It's sort of redundant. But in your situation, I guess when you're working one-on-one, these diplomatic courtesies really matter. The speaker wants to know that all these platitudes he's saying, all these sort of nice things he's saying about the ambassador, they really do get across to the ambassador, and vice versa, I guess. It's these diplomatic, as I call them, flowers. I often call them flowers when the speakers start going off on these very sometimes flowery statements. I'd say cut them down, trim them down. They're not so important. But yeah, in your situation, I imagine you do want to very much convey that meaning, because it's everything's on a much more personal, one-to-one level.
Yes, I mean, not only personal, because the ambassador represents a country. It represents Pakistan. So what he is saying, like the flowers represent how much Pakistan values the friendship with China. So we have to convey that kind of gratitude or hospitality.
Yeah. So there's all the little shortcuts that I teach you in the other episodes. You have to set them aside for this episode, okay? Because if you're going to go into this this business of, you know, working for ambassadors, one-on-one meetings, then you need to actually convey that flowery language in as eloquently as possible. Okay, well, I think that's a good moment now then to actually move to the dialogue itself that Sophie sent me. So I'm just going to share that with you. Give me a second, Sophie.
Yes, I can see the word.
Okay. Right. Now I've got the video lined up. So what I'll do is we'll just sort of go. Okay, so let's move to the dialogue that Sophie sent us in. And so I need you to, all the interpretation station viewers there, to now close your eyes and that you'll imagine you're in some far-flung region of China. Hunan, do we say?
Far.
What far-flung, remote, far off. It's a nice word.
Remote.
Far-flung. What was this? So the situation here that we have, was there any sort of part of China that you had in mind, or was it a sort of just a generic region of China?
Very generic, because I think basically every part of China has very rich historic resources, cultural resources.
Right. So this conversation could basically apply to any of them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you'll have the text in front of you, and I'm just going to start playing the dialogue. So what you'll hear. So is it you, Sophie, that's playing the party official? Is that your voice speaking the Chinese?
No, not mine. It's my friend.
That's your friend. Okay, so Sophie's friend is playing the official, the party secretary. I think I called the ABC province, and you'll hear my voice. I will be playing the Pakistani ambassador. Now you may know one thing you may note, certainly, well, if there are any English native speakers watching, is that when I speak, I will actually make some grammatical errors. Little, not major, but I thought just to give it a bit more authenticity. It's like goes back to what I was saying before, that often in these situations, the speaker will not be a native English speaker. And I believe, Sophie, that am I not right in saying that the Pakistani ambassador, that English is not his native tongue? He's got very good English, but not native, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what's his native tongue? Is it Urdu?
Yeah, Urdu.
Okay, so sometimes non-native speakers, they're prone sometimes to use some slightly strange vocabulary. So there's a couple of slightly strange things that he says, and the whole point, it's important for you as an interpreter not to get overly distracted or thrown off course by what are slightly strange uses of English, but just keep on and make sure that what you say in the output language, Chinese in this case, sounds like proper Chinese. You don't want to be mimicking, you don't want to ever mimic the bad grammar of the source speaker. That's the important thing. Okay, so the first voice you'll hear then will be Sophie's friend, and then you will hear Sophie's friend speaking Chinese, and then you'll hear Sophie interpreting that bit into Chinese. So here we go.
大使阁下，欢迎您光临我省。Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, welcome to our province.
I mean, this just picks up very quickly. Just you got to say Your Excellency, okay? See, if I was doing simultaneous or whatever conference, I might say, don't worry about the Excellency, just call him Mr. Ambassador, that'll be fine. Not here. Make sure you call him Your Excellency. Okay.
我们期待您的来访已经很久了。因为巴基斯坦是我们地区最重要的贸易伙伴之一。Been for quite a long time because your country is one of the most essential trade partners of our region.
Okay, so here, a couple of things that I might add here. So we've been expecting your visit for quite a long time. That's fine. We'd probably also say, we've been looking forward to your visit for a long time. Is another sort of nice, slightly more natural sounding thing to say in English. Okay, so we've been looking forward to your visit for a long time. And essential trade partners, again, that's good. We often talk about just key trade partners. is another sort of adjective that we use there, and it's a little bit shorter than essential. Key, it's easier to say than essential, but yeah, that there. Let's go on.
今年是我们两国建交70周年，您的这次访问对我省和两国合作具有重要意义。And this year marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between our two nations. So your visit is of great significance for our promise and our cooperation.
Okay, so yeah, diplomatic ties, diplomatic relations, perhaps slightly better, but there's not much in it. But again, either or, diplomatic ties or diplomatic relations. And as we now know, the 70th anniversary, I thought you were perhaps making it up, but there you go. So it really was 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Pakistan, of our two countries, of our two nations. Again, there is technically, semantically, I think, a difference between nations and countries, but it's not too big. It's not anything to worry about. No, okay, let's go on.
我省是电子商务和数字经济的领军者，这两个行业对我省 GDP 的贡献接近50%。Our province is a forerunner in e-commerce and digital economy, with these two industries contributing nearly 50% to our GDP.
Now, the one thing I'd call you out on here slightly, okay, it's an understandable mistake. So a forerunner tends to be more something that that precedes something else historically, let's say. You know, this, you could say, for example, you could say something along the Industrial Revolution was like a forerunner of the Digital Revolution, something that came before it. But if you're wanting to say that our province, you know, is, you know, the sort of top dog when it comes to e-commerce, what you want to be saying is a leader. Okay, did you say so? A front runner as well. You could say our province is a front runner, or our province is a leader. Okay, so forerunner is more something to do with events, you know, one event being a prelude to a future event. And okay, so the reason I highlighted industries here was you can talk about industries, you can talk about sectors as well, either or again. Okay.
巴基斯坦可以作为我们网上平台的供应商，使当地农民受益。And Pakistan can become a supplier of our online platforms, which can also benefit local farmers. 我们也想听听大使阁下是如何看待。So I would to Excellency on.
Okay, so with that bit just sort of cut out. So I would like to hear from Your Excellency on this issue, is what Sophie said. So, and maybe another way you could say this, often say this in English, you know, I'd like to get Your Excellency's take on this issue. I'd like to get Your Excellency's input on this issue. It's perhaps slightly a register, slightly down. I'd like to hear from your, it's a very business-like sort of thing to say. I'd like to get your take on something. You hear it a lot. Okay, so it's a good one to it's a good alternative to always just saying I'd like to hear from Your Excellency on this issue. You've got loads. I mean, you can say I'd like to hear Your Excellency's opinion on this issue as well. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Okay, now you're going to hear me speaking as the ambassador. I've always wanted to be ambassador. That's what I was trained for, actually. You see, I studied at university. I studied international relations and Russian. So really, I was tailor-made to be an ambassador. I was meant to be on the other side of the glass booth. But to be honest, I never really fancied it. Never really fancied going into the diplomatic service. And well, there you go. This is probably the closest, Sophie, I'll ever get. And it's probably a good thing too. Okay, so let's carry on. So now Sophie is going to is going to give us some explanations for some of her choices of words. She's also going to give us synonyms as well. Okay.
Distinguished Party Secretary of XY Province, Madam Chan, thank you for the very warm welcome. It's my great honor to be received by you and your colleagues in this beautiful province.
尊敬的省长阁下，感谢您热烈的欢迎。 能够在这个美丽的省份接受您和您同事的接见，我以及我们一行人都感到非常荣幸。
Okay, Sophie, so tell us a bit about some of the word choices there. Feel free to speak Chinese as well to the Chinese viewers who are hopefully watching this. We've come to an agreement beforehand that when Sophie speaks, she can speak Chinese and then she'll report back to me what she says. And I've told her, you mustn't say anything rude about me because I won't know.
Okay.
Okay.
For warm welcome, I can think of two versions. The first one is 热烈欢迎, which is the literal translation of this phrase, 热烈欢迎. And also we can also say 热情招待. It's like very cordial reception.
Okay, I was going to say, so in English, sometimes, you know, when you have all these statements that repeat each other, you just get sick to death sometimes of just saying, the delegation of so-and-so wishes a warm welcome to the delegation of so-and-so. So sometimes, you know, just to play around with it, our delegation extends a warm welcome, or the delegation welcomes. Our delegation offers cordial greetings to so-and-so. So yeah, so in English we have, you know, we can play about with it. So you can sort of play about with it a bit in the Chinese as well, huh? It's always good to, you know, it's always good to do that generally, and you know, otherwise people listening in will just think that's the only trick that they've got. You want to, you know, if there are other people listening in to you, whoever it may be it examiners in a test or your employers when they're trying to, you know, when they're basically spying on your work, you do want to sort of show that you can play around with language a little bit, that you're not just always like a robot delivering the exact same thing. So, okay.
Time visiting this province and its capital city. Even though I have only been here for 3 days, I am deeply impressed by the fire-like hospitality of people here.
这是我初次到访这个省份以及省会城市，尽管我才到这里3天，广大民众的热情和好客仍旧给我留下了深刻的印象。
Okay, so Sophie, so this is a bit interesting actually. So this is an example of a couple of little things here that aren't entirely native English sounding. Like in English, would we say deeply impressed? Maybe not quite the right collocation. Fire-like hospitality, that's an interesting thing to say. Again, a native English speaker would probably just sort of say something like the very warm hospitality. So the fire-like hospitality, you get the impression it's like maybe a non-native speaker trying to impress his counterpart with, and then using a word that sounds slightly odd. Sounds okay, but so how would you deal with that going into the Chinese then, Sophie?
Well, firstly, deeply impressed. I think all of us can get the main idea behind this phrase. So I can replace this to other more natural expressions like in Chinese, it's basically like 印象很深刻。因为在这里，这个 deeply impressed 印象很深刻，在这是说得通的。它就是说我对别人的热情感到印象深刻，给我留下了很深的印象，或者这样导一下也可以。What I said is like in Chinese we have the not the counterpart. In Chinese we have the same expression to replace the meaning of this phrase. Yep. Not exactly like the literal translation, but like the meaning behind this.
Okay.
Yes, that works. And for the fire-like hospitality, 这一句它有一点说的不像中文，但是我们可以在中文找到替代的东西，或者有一样意思的东西。比如说热情似火是一个非常好的替代，因为它的意思和这个后面的意思是完全一样的，而且非常的地道。And for fire-like hospitality, luckily we can find a Chinese phrase which has exact same meaning as this one. And it's also a very vivid way to say that our hospitality is really warm. It's like 热情似火, which literally means our hospitality is like fire.
Okay, let's play it on.
I fully agree with you that my visit here is very timely and can advance our bilateral cooperation to a new step.
我很同意您说的。这次到访的时机非常好，而且可以把我们双边的关系提升至新的水平。
Okay, this is just one before Sophie gives her explanation. Yeah, so an expression is advance our bilateral cooperation to a new step. Again, it doesn't quite sound like fully English. So this is an example, you know, when you, as I say, when you have the non-native speaker. I mean, in English, we'd probably say, take our bilateral cooperation to a new level, I would say, I think is or advance it to a new level, take it to a new level, I think is more natural way of saying that in English. Sophie, anything to say for that a little bit?
No.
Okay, I'll play it on.
Pleased to say that digital economy, especially e-commerce, happen to be areas we are interested in too.
我很高兴的是，数字经济，特别是电子商务，也是我们非常感兴趣的领域。
There remains a huge scope for two sides to work with each other.
而且，双方进行合作的领域非常广阔。
Okay, so I'd be interested to know, Sophie, so with this sentence, so a huge scope. So what have you gone, tell the Chinese viewers what you're thinking, your rationale was here.
A huge scope 在这个语境当中，它是说双边的合作空间很大，所以我们可以去说空间，也可以去找空间的近义词，比如说潜力很大，都可以说得通。It's like a huge scope here is for the cooperation, which means the potential for our cooperation is huge. It's very
right, the
promising.
potential. That's an interesting word that you use there, because I would say, you know, in English, another thing, you know, there remains huge potential as well for the two sides to work with each other. So that's what you did in the Chinese, is it?
Yes. In Chinese, the scope and the potential, these words both work in this context.
Okay. That's okay. Just play on.
Perfectly compatible with our country having a wide range of popular agricultural products and your province being able to handle logistics and cold chain transportation. We can achieve win-win cooperation in this area and bring practical benefits to both peoples.
贵省份和我们契合度非常高，因为我们国家有多种多样、广受欢迎的农产品，而贵省份有能力组织物流以及冷链运输。我们完全可以在这个领域开展双赢的合作，并把务实的成果带给双方人民。
Okay, there's a few interesting expressions in this side. I'm from the English side, and I'm sure on the Chinese side as well. So I'll just say first of all from my side. So this, you know, the idea we are perfectly compatible. Another thing that you could say in English on this, you know, we're a very good match. We make a very good match. Then yeah, a wide range, that's a sort of expression that in English you've got a lot of different things for, you know, a broad spectrum, for example. Wide range, broad spectrum, there's a good couple of synonyms to know there. And then, okay, cold chain transportation, I'm going to let Sophie come to that. Okay, so tell me, Sophie, on your side, so what are the interesting sort of linguistic solutions you've used in this first sentence?
对于 compatible 来说，它第一次听到这个词的时候可能会有一点挑战性，因为它的字面意思是相匹配的，而在你这个相匹配直接套进这句话的话，在中文里听起来不太地道，就有可能出现一种隔膜感，所以你就可以说契合度很高，用契合词这个词给它替代一下。So the literal translation of compatible in Chinese may sound a little bit weird in this context. It basically means match, but in Chinese, match doesn't sound good for two parties which are going to have cooperation. So maybe we can say that 契合度很高. It's like we can match perfectly, but in another way.
Okay.
I don't know
is the other way more romantic?
Not romantic. It's like more precise.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then anything else there? So a wide range. Is there a couple of different ways you could sort of express that in Chinese?
In Chinese, I don't think we have a lot of ways to put a wide range or all kinds of a broad spectrum. All we can say is 各种各样的, which basically means all kinds of.
Okay, I've just had a moment's of inspiration, actually. If you want another synonym for a wide range, a myriad. You can talk about a myriad of one word, a myriad of popular agricultural products. So that's a good word to use. That's a good word. Very, very high register. Very high register. Now, tell us what cold chain transportation is, because I'm going to have to put my hands up, must confess, I had to look that up. I didn't know what cold chain transportation was. I know now, but I'll let you enlighten everyone.
Yeah, cold chain transportation has to be applied to the goods or the commodities which require really low temperature to be transported, like seafood, especially for seafood, I think, maybe like fish or
all sort of
shrimp.
perishable products. I think
Perishable.
Perish as in if you leave them out just in normal temperature, they'll go off. So they have to be they have to be kept refrigerated. So
for example,
we
yeah, the vaccine developed by Pfizer or other companies.
Right, that involves cold chain they have to be kept at a certain temperature, don't they? Right. Well, that's a very useful thing to know. That very useful expression to know in English. So how do you say that in Chinese?
冷链运输.
Is that like a literal translation? Or?
Yes. 冷 means cold, 链 means chain, 运输 means transportation.
Okay. And then in this final sentence, so this is a good sort of expression, a win-win cooperation. I mean, you often, if I'm interpreting from another language and I hear that idea, to be honest, in most other languages, that's expressed as like mutually beneficial cooperation. And so that's what I would usually probably interpret it as. But just because it's more a sort of like for like solution, but this is actually a really good thing to say, a win-win cooperation. So how do you render that into Chinese?
I highly suspect that this translation comes from Chinese. In Chinese, we have 双赢合作, which literally means double win cooperation.
Is that right? You got the same sort of idea, right? Because I mean, with other languages that I know, I don't know if they really do that. It's usually, as I say, mutually beneficial. But so Chinese version is very similar to this English version. That's interesting. Okay, let's move on. Now you'll hear, the party secretary then, party official speaking.
我很高兴在这个很重要的议题上与阁下达成一致。I'm so glad to achieve an agreement on this major issue with Your Excellency.
So you do one little thing, just a very quick synonym. We tend to maybe talk slightly more about reaching agreement. I'm so glad to reach agreement on this major issue. Again, achieves fine. Reach is maybe just a tad better. I'll play on.
知道您这次出差安排很紧张，但我还是很想向您介绍一下我们省份的独特文化。I know you must have a very tight schedule during this business trip, but I have to promote unique culture of our province to you. 如果您有
Another alternative then to have a tight schedule, we'll often talk about having a hectic schedule. If there's like meetings here, there, everywhere, it's like really hectic. So that's another good synonym to have. Do you stop me, Sophie, if there's anything you want to just pick out on the Chinese side, or?
Okay.
Shall I go on?
Yeah, play on.
时间的话，其实您可以亲自去体验一下我们的历史景点。I would like to recommend Your Excellency to visit some historic spots if you can spare some time.
Very, very small grammatical correction to make here. So recommend in English, I think it takes the subjunctive. So when you actually say recommend, you really meant to say, I recommend Your Excellency visit. I recommend you visit. So you don't, people say with to visit, but good English, you're actually meant to say, I recommend Your Excellency, I recommend you visit. I recommended he visit. I recommended he visit. That can really throw non-native English speakers, because where's the S? You're thinking, where's the N that he visits? No, because I say this recommend sort of puts the next verb into the subjunctive. You say, I recommended that he visit the doctor or whatever. But very tight. This is real nitpicking on my part. And then, okay, so I was going to give you enough for historic spots. You could also say historic landmarks is another nice word to use instead of spots. Anything on your side, Sophie?
No.
Okay, I'll carry on.
我们省城是几个古代王朝的首都， 为我们留下了物质文化遗产和非物质文化遗产。Our capital city has served as the capital of several ancient dynasties, which have left us tangible and intangible cultural heritage.
Okay. Dynasty. I say dynasty. I know
Maybe-
Americans say dynasty. Have you ever heard of the there was a TV series that was really huge when I was growing up in like the 1980s, 1990s. It was called, well, the Americans called it Dynasty. So in Britain we called it Dynasty. It was always on like 8 o'clock on a Saturday evening. Have you ever heard of it? It was all
wasn't
about
part-
it was all about how the rich and powerful lived in I think it was all set in California, and there was Blake Carrington. It was all about the Carringtons, and I'm sure those Brits among you, if any of you watch, you'll remember Dynasty. And there was Dallas as well. Did you hear about Dallas, Sophie?
I only know there's a NBA team, which is Dallas.
Right, it's more famous for its NBA team now. There used to be again, it was all about these oil barons living in Dallas. That's what we kids in the UK, what we used to watch in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, you see, with our parents. No, leaving that aside, tell us what intangible cultural heritage is, because this is an interesting concept. You might not necessarily know. I had heard of it before, but I had to look it up still to see exactly what it was. So tell us what intangible cultural heritage is.
If you want to, in Chinese or in English?
In English.
Okay. If we want to understand intangible cultural heritage, we have to see what is tangible cultural heritage. Tangible means that something you can touch, something you can see, is very concrete. But for intangible, it's like a concept. For example, the technique to do embroidery is intangible because how to say?
You can't touch it, can I mean?
The idea of doing this embroidery work only exists in your mind.
Right.
If you know how to do it, you know. If you don't, you have no idea. That's intangible.
And I believe it also covers like the flamenco, the dances, like the flamenco. This is sort of intangible, isn't it?
The routine exists in your mind.
Right.
You can only remember. Yes.
So that's a useful just thing to know. How do you say that in Chinese?
Intangible cultural heritage is 非物质文化遗产.
Okay, there you go. Okay, let me play on. Last bit.
您还可以在某些道路上欣赏到古代建筑的遗迹，找寻古代传奇的踪迹。You can still find legendary days by appreciating sites of ancient buildings on these roads.
Okay, so I had a little synonym for you there for legendary days. So for something, I think we can say in English, we can talk about the halcyon days. Like those were like the days of greatness, the days of legend, halcyon. So I'll put that up on the screen so that you can read it. But that's a very nice alternative. Have you ever heard it, Sophie?
No.
Okay, so it's quite sort of, again, quite high register, quite literary phrase, the halcyon days. And we'd probably sort of say, you know, taking in the sites of ancient take in something. We take in the sites, more actually the site as in SIGHTS. We'd probably here say actually visiting sites in English. If you want to visit the sites of ancient buildings. If there's things you want to see, the sites, you take them in is again a very sort of typical way of saying in English, to go and take in the sites. But when it's sites, as in of ancient buildings, SITES, we would probably just visit the sites. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the last bit of dialogue then, and this is me, the ambassador.
Thank you so much for your passionate introduction of your hometown. Before this trip, I have heard a lot about this time-honored place from my Chinese colleagues in the embassy, and all of them are jealous of our delegation for having the opportunity to pay a visit to this beautiful province.
感谢您如此富含激情地介绍您的家乡。其实，在这次行程之前， 我从大使馆的中国同事那里听到了很多关于这个历史悠久省份的故事。
Okay, so what I was interested here was how so time-honored place, for example. So how do you do that in the Chinese?
In Chinese, we have different choices. For example, 我们可以说历史悠久，这是一个非常常见的表达。但是我们如果想说的更有文采一点的话，可以说历史底蕴非常的丰富，历史底蕴非常的深厚。So I basically said we have two choices. The first one is very common, but very like mundane. Is the most ordinary choice, like time-honored, long-lasting place. The other one is like literary, sounds better. 历史底蕴非常丰厚，历史底蕴非常深厚。
Okay. What does that mean literally in English?
Well, it can be translated literally in English. In English, it would be like 历史底蕴非常深。We have a very deep foundation, a very deep historical foundation.
Okay. I'm just trying to think in English if there's something else what we would say. This time-honored is a very good expression. It's time-honored.
Historic?
That's more mundane. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's good. I mean, time-honored is nice. I'm just trying to think. Age-old place. Anyway, and then the jealousy of our delegation. One, I mean, in English, again, a very slight point. So jealousy tends to be more when talking, boyfriends jealous of girlfriends, other male friend, that sort of thing. I mean, probably technically we'd say envious. All of them are envious of our delegation for having the opportunity. But again, it's a very minor point. Is there any? Do you have that difference in Chinese between jealousy and envy? Envy being one of the 7 deadly sins. So there's the 7 deadly sins. So in English, one of them is envy, as opposed. It's not jealousy. It's specifically envy, wanting something, the other person's thing. So do you have that difference? Sorry, in Chinese.
But in Chinese, I don't think most Chinese know about the 7 sins in Christianity.
Okay.
So for us, jealousy has more like a negative undertone. It means, for example, I'm jealous of another girl, so I don't want her to live a better life than me.
Okay.
But for envy, it's like, oh, I admire her lifestyle. Maybe one day I want to become someone like her.
Okay. I guess there is a bit to that. I mean, they're both quite negative, jealousy and envy. I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. The envy's like, I want that as well. But yeah, it's tend to be still viewed negatively. As I say, that's one of the 7 deadly sins. So, it's in. So yeah, in Chinese, people, they wouldn't be familiar with those expressions, I guess.
No, I only learned the 7 sins in university because I was learning British American literature, so we have to know about the religion, the philosophy.
The best place to find out about the 7 deadly sins is the film Seven. Have you watched it?
No,
Brad
I don't
Pitt. Watch Seven. It's a great film. It's pretty grim. It's pretty really great film though. Seven. Watch it, Sophie. You learn all about the 7 deadly sins: wrath, envy. What are the other ones? I can't remember now. Okay, greed. I think that could be one. Okay, let's go on.
Actually,
gluttony. Gluttony is one of them. That's the greed one. Gluttony. Sorry.
Okay.
Getting back to it.
关于这个历史悠久省份的故事。
Actually, we already have a plan to take a walk along the ancient canal at the southern part of the city tomorrow morning.
事实上，我们打算明天早上沿着省城南部的古运河去走一走。
I will bear your words in mind and try to appreciate the beauty and charm of this city and this province. Thank you again.
在欣赏美景的时候呢，我会记住您所说的这些，尝试着去欣赏这座城市的美丽和魅力。再次谢谢您。
Okay, Sophie, is there anything you'd like to sort of just take up from these last couple of sentences? Anything interesting?
Maybe appreciate the beauty.
Okay.
在中文里，我们可以有很多种方式去表达这一个，比如说去欣赏它的美景，去享受这个美景，或者去观赏它的美景，都可以增加一些语言的灵活度。So what I said is that we have different options for appreciate the beauty, which can showcase the language flexibility of us. Like 欣赏、观赏、享受, 3 different ways to put it.
You got 3 different synonyms there for appreciate, yeah? Yeah, that's always that's a sort of word that, that you want, same in English, that you want a few different alternatives for, to admire the beauty, to take in the beauty, appreciate the beauty. So that's always good. And then again, with an expression like, I'll bear your words in mind, again, like in English, it's one of those things, these little state things that you want to have 2 or 3 different things so that the listener or examiner, whoever it may be, doesn't always see you saying using the exact same formulation. I'll keep your words in mind. I'll take on board what you have to say. So it's always good to mix it up a little bit. Well, that brings to an end my role as an ambassador. It was short but sweet. Again, probably never likely to be repeated. Sophie, how was that for you?
Very productive. I learned a lot.
I hope
a lot of idiomatic expressions in English.
Great. I'm glad you did. I hope that you, the viewers, did as well. If you liked the episode, everybody, please do smash the like button. Also, if you think that you may have friends and colleagues who might benefit, both in terms of finding out more about the kind of interpreting that Sophie does as an interpreter and ambassador, that sort of interpreting, recommend it to them, and also recommend it to them from the language point of view, from the new sort of expressions, phrases that we've learned. I trust that Sophie has taught you some good synonyms into Chinese. I hope she wasn't rude about me when she was speaking Chinese. As I say, I will never know. I'll just have to take her word for it. She seems fairly honest. So I guess I'll be all right. Sophie, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
We must have you back again sometime if you'd like to make more episodes with me.
I would love to.
Because this is a really good exercise doing this form, this of how it looks in consecutive or chuchotage. It's a bit different, as I say, the interpretation station's usual fare. Okay, I'll just let you say goodbye to everyone in Chinese, perhaps. That'll sound nice, and then I'll close the show.
Thank you. 再见.
Okay. Well, all that leaves me to say, therefore, is that. So it's 20 to 4 now. I'm off to have my late lunch for me today. Sophie, it's what time is it where you are? 10 o'clock, 10, 11 in the evening?
Yeah, not too, 9:40.
9:40, okay. Back to work tomorrow?
Yes.
Back to work tomorrow, okay. You're going to show the ambassador the show once I put it up?
Okay, I will show him.
Very good. All right, everybody. Episode 82 of the Ko I-Jan stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the interpretation station. We hope you enjoyed your visit